So our final panel is a special one, and it's very important to, of course, veterans. It's about integrating into the veteran community within your own district. With a very special presentation from several members of the Truman National Security Project. I'm going to go ahead and introduce down the line here. So first panelist is Rob Diamond. Rob served for 7 years as an officer in the United States Navy. He's a surface warfare officer by training and was stationed on board the missile destroyer USS, I'm going to say this wrong. Bulkley, thank you. Which completed deployments in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. Robert served as the aide to the Navy's Chief of Legislative Affairs in the Pentagon and as Navy Liaison Officer to the U.S. House of Representatives. He's a security fellow with the Truman National Security Project and a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. And he speaks and publishes regularly on issues related to national security and on military and veterans affairs. And he's a vice chairman of the Veterans Council of the DNC. I want to welcome him today. Next we have John Powers. John is currently the Chief Operating Officer of the Truman National Security Project. He's previously the Veterans Program Director of the Liaison Group, thank you, where he worked on developing the outreach efforts of the progressive community to the veterans and military families in America. He also served for 4 years as an officer of the U.S. Army, including a 15-month tour in Iraq as part of Iraqi Freedom I. And in 2005, John founded War Kids Relief after returning to Iraq as a civilian to develop programs to engage Iraqi youth and minimize recruitment in radicalized elements. The youth and counterterrorism research and program development efforts that led to War Kids Relief becoming a lead advocacy agency working to create a bridge between American and Iraqi youth to build a foundation for peace. In 2008, John himself was also a congressional candidate for New York's 26th district. And finally, we have Brandon Friedman. Brandon's currently the Director of New Media at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Now, prior to his work with government, politics, and the media, Friedman served as an infantry officer in the U.S. Army's 101st Airborne Division in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Kuwait, and Iraq. Brandon is the author of the book, The War I Always Wanted, and from 2007 to 2009, he served as vice chairman of the organization VoteVets.org. I want to thank all of our panelists for being there. They have a special presentation they'd like to give in regards to integrating it into the veterans community within your district.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Seth, and everyone from the Veterans Campaign for putting this together. When I ran in 2008, I wish there had been something like this for me to go to and learn from. I might have won that. So this slide presentation, just to give you, it's sort of pieced together from a couple different ones. So we're going to sort of be bouncing amongst the three of us and sort of jumping in at any time. Feel free to ask questions at any time. And there are some memos up front that I'll talk about in a little bit that has a lot of this information in it when you're done. But what we're going to talk about today is reaching out to the military community within your districts, reaching out to the veteran community within your district, and how to utilize that community to reach out to others. And how do we come to this model? When, at the end of 2008, unfortunately I lost in a pretty wicked Democratic primary and came down here. In the last 6 weeks of the 2008 cycle, I worked for this group called the Liaison Group. And the Liaison Group wanted to help create veteran and military outreach for candidates across the country. We worked for about 27 races in the course of about 6 weeks. I would say of 27 races, 3 of them had any type of structural veteran or military outreach. And that include districts that had military bases on them. So we thought this was a huge failure going into 2008. And after 2008, we held an after-action review for folks that had been doing this across the board. There'd been a lot of progress made in 2008, but there still needed more to come. And we sort of built a model on how to best create that outreach from that experience. The Truman National Security Project is actually a couple of the fellows here in the room as well today. Is an organization that recruits, trains, and positions the next generation of progressives that lead on national security. So a lot of the folks that we work with end up running or are involved in campaigns, and that's sort of where Brandon and Rob and I come from. So one of the keys is across America right now there's an incredible mistrust of politicians. We thought this picture explained it pretty well. But America trusts you. As a military veteran, there's studies by Harvard that shows that the military is the most trusted institute right now in America, way above Wall Street, way above politicians, way above Congress. It's incredibly trusted. And you've got to be able to utilize that, because when voters are going to vote for you in your upcoming elections, it's not because of your policies, for the most part. It's because of who you are, because they can trust you. That's a key part of what your campaign needs to be built around. So, if there's anything to take away from this, is the key part to that trust. And it's hard for veterans to do this, but you're going to have to go out and sell yourself as a veteran. So when you go to meet someone or you're raising money, you introduce yourself as, hello, my name is John Powers. I'm an Iraq vet running for Congress. Why is that? Because if I said, hello, my name is John Powers, I'm running for Congress, people will probably either be A, turned off, or B, at least step back a little bit. But if you introduce yourself as a veteran running for Congress, there's an automatic trust there. People are interested, especially donors, which is really key to what you have got to do, unfortunately. And it helps you get in the door. That said, don't make your campaign strictly about you being a veteran. It should be part of who you are. It should be part of your story. It should be part of a policy that you're focused on. But if your entire campaign is based on your experience in Iraq and Afghanistan, you know, it'll be helpful, but that's not what people are thinking about right now as they're trying to get back to getting to work and trying to figure out these healthcare bills and all the other pieces. But because people automatically trust you, it's key. And putting that into your statement, when you meet people at parades, when you meet people at picnics this summer, when you go to the county fairs, it's, hello, my name is, I'm a blank veteran running for this office. See a few guys walking around with the combat ribbons on. Don't be afraid to do that. You know, people, when you get into public service, you've got to be able to sort of step out of your comfort zone. And so it really helps you stand out compared to your opponents. So when we talk about the military community, what do we mean? One of the things that really came out of 2008 is not just about veterans. You've got to be able to reach out to military families. You've got to reach the active military as well. Military families played a key role in 2008 campaigns, and as you all know from having served, they're a community that feels very underthanked. 96% of military families feel that the American public does not understand what they're going through. 96%. That's a huge number. But the key part of this is your districts, no matter where you are in this country, are populated heavily with this military community. I ran in New York's 26. We had between 15 to 18% veterans alone. That doesn't include military families. Areas around military installations are incredibly high. Arizona got 660,000 vets. That doesn't include active duty. That doesn't include military families. So what does that mean? That means a major percentage of your voting block is connected to the military. And so when you have, whether it be your robocalls or your ads or your targeted mail, or you're going door to door and you introduce yourself as a veteran running, there's a comfort zone with a major part of your district, a bipartisan part of your district. Because when you're talking about the military, you're talking about veterans, they usually will be able to put their party aside, especially to support another veteran. So it's very key. The interesting thing, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, is how to actually identify those veterans in your district. It's really important as you're starting to lay your campaign plan out that you're targeting them. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the power of organizing and why it's so important that you build this community to reach out to. And I'm just going to cover the last two presidential campaigns to give you an idea. Don't take the party lean in these next two slides. We know this is a bipartisan group, but just to give you an example. 2004 elections. John Kerry touted himself as a war hero, a Vietnam veteran, lost heavily among the military vote, heavily, 65-35. Kerry started organizing Vets for Kerry. It was something that was for the first time sort of seen on the Democratic side, groups going out saying Vets for or military for, but it's very, very, very underorganized. In 2008, that changed. Barack Obama went out heavily and organized among the veterans and was able to get a better percentage against a very well-touted Vietnam war hero. So he was able to get a lot more of that community to support him.
And just to add some detail to that, inside the Obama campaign, the Veterans and Military Families community became a constituency group, and we had full-time staff in Chicago in campaign headquarters solely dedicated towards the issues of veterans and military families. And the model that we're going to talk about at a local level, we ran on a national level. We had regional directors covering the country. We had 50 state directors, all under the Veterans and Military Families constituency group, and we were working literally in every district around the country talking to veterans and military families. So we built a top-down organization just like we were women for Obama, or gays and lesbians for Obama, or labor for Obama. We were an official constituency group for the first time, and you're going to see that going forward. It was a big success.
It was a major success. I mean, you see the numbers of voters that actually affects when you're reaching out. You're talking 15, 20% of some districts. That's an incredible chunk you're getting into. Sorry, I keep pressing the wrong button. So Rob's going to come up for a second and talk about what we sort of see as a three-step process to engaging the military community.
So as I just mentioned, this is a model that really we're focused on building it at the local level, but this applies across any race. If you're talking about a city, state, local, federal race, it doesn't matter. You can repeat this. We've done this at the state level for governors and lieutenant governors. We're doing it around the country for federal candidates right now, and we've got folks doing it for local races. I know I'm working on a couple local races in New York where we're doing outreach like this. There's three steps to this. The first one is building what we call a military advisory council or a Veterans Military Families Advisory Council. This is going to be a part of your campaign, and it's going to be a tool for you to use both for policy ideas, both for outreach, and both for feedback from the ground. Second piece is the policy pledge. We're going to talk a little bit about how you shape that Veterans Military Policy Statement, how you broadcast it, how you share it, how you write it. And third, we're going to talk about the actions you can take as a candidate to outreach to that community. So the Veterans Advisory Council or the Military Advisory Council, what you call this really depends on where you are. If you're in a district that is heavily active duty military, where you're next to a major military installation, maybe you want to call it a Military Advisory Council because the community is more connected to the current day military. If you're in a district that's heavily populated with veterans, maybe you want to call it a Veterans Advisory Council, or maybe you want to form two of them and have one that's talking about active duty, current issues, and one that's talking about veterans, military families issues. But why are we doing this? This is so you can build that outreach into the community. You can go out into the community and find those leaders in the community who are concerned about those issues and bring them to the table and bring them into your campaign. These include the veteran service organizations, members of the veteran service organizations. We're going to talk more about them because a lot of the VSOs in name are nonpartisan, but their members aren't. So you can go out and you can talk to those organizations and bring them into your advisory council. These are folks who are going to act as surrogates for you. You can't be everywhere at once, but these are folks that can go out wearing the veteran or military family 4X to different events, speak on your behalf, write on your behalf, do media on your behalf. It builds a pool of surrogates to outreach into the veterans community. And this is, frankly, something you can do with any constituency group, but it's something that works particularly well in the veterans and military community.
Rob, there's one group that I forgot to put in when I was putting the slides together, specific for this community, and it's also people you serve with who may not live in the district, which it could be a really key group who are willing to, when we get later into phone calls and stuff. I had a whole bunch of guys from my platoon who were on my Veterans for Powers Veterans for John committee, and we're making phone calls from Florida and Alabama and other places, but they were involved, and they were part of that team.
And this can be very powerful because you can have members of your unit who are friends and close friends of yours who are on the complete opposite ideological spectrum from you and can stand there during your campaign and say, you know what, I'm a Democrat, but Bill's running as a Republican, but I don't really care because I served with him, I know who he is, I know the type of person he is, and he's somebody that I would want as an elected official. It's a very powerful message, and it's a great point that John brings up. The point of this, though, is that this is not just for photo ops. This is to get legitimate outreach into the community and to build a base of supporters and to build a base of surrogates for you as you move forward in your campaign. This slide is important because it talks about who should and who should not be on a military advisory council or a veterans advisory council. As I'm sure you've heard a couple times today, and you'll see it in that bold red box there, that there's a fine line here when you're talking to the active duty military, because obviously we all know the rules about partisan political activity for those on active duty. Especially you don't want anybody in uniform participating in any of your political events. You don't want them representing anything officially on behalf of the military. You can get people in a lot of trouble. There was a recent example, if anybody saw the Virginia governor who did the State of the Union response, he had a National Guard member in uniform sitting right over his right shoulder clapping during his response to the State of the Union and actually got that soldier in quite a bit of trouble. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to be the guy that got somebody court-martialed because he appeared at your rally in uniform.
And that chart is in the memo that's up front, because it's a lot of information, but it's broken down in the memo up here.
One of the things that you also want to pay attention to when you're going through this and you're setting up something like this is the voter files don't necessarily track where veterans served, how many tours they did, what units they were in, who else they know in the community, and whether they served together. But as you're talking to veterans and you're trying to build up these kind of committees, what you want to do is keep a list, maybe a spreadsheet, and you want to track which of these veterans were in the Army, which were in the Navy, which were in the Air Force, which were Marines, who was in Iraq, who was in Afghanistan, because when there's a specific issue that comes up in the media, maybe it's about Afghanistan and you need a surrogate, you want to be able to tap into some of your volunteers who are Afghanistan vets, because they can speak with maybe a little more credibility than another veteran who had never served there. So this is all the kinds of data that you do want to track when you're doing this kind of stuff.
And don't forget, for the younger vets, our generation, don't forget that there's a whole bunch of folks that came before us. So you should have folks from Vietnam, from Korea, who maybe didn't serve in conflicts at all. If you can find some World War II vets, you want to have a multi-generational group up there. There's a stigma right now that Iraq, Afghanistan vets don't mix well with these other vets. They're not really working together. Well, here's a chance to show that's wrong.
The other 2 points obviously up there that show you not just, as Brandon mentioned, inter-service, and not as John mentioned, but intergenerational. Make sure you're represented by gender. Make sure you're represented by military families. Make sure you're talking about reserve and National Guard issues as well. You really want to try to make these councils as broad as possible and think about the military community as a whole and all the different aspects of it, because some of those aspects can be very parochial, as John mentioned. Probably the most important thing when it comes to this advisory council is finding reliable co-chairs. You need those 2 or 3 people who are going to take on the water for you and really run this show. And frankly, they need to be people who you're not going to be afraid to have in front of cameras, in front of audiences, talking on your behalf. It's really the most important piece, because as you've probably had drilled into your head for the last few hours here today, you are going to be spending the vast majority of your time on the phones and raising money. And these are the people that are going to be out there doing the outreach for you. So if there's one critical step in getting this off the ground, it's finding those 2 or 3 co-chairs that can help you out. And my personal opinion is you want to try to geographically disperse them. Everybody has districts that cover different areas, or you may have different cities. Try to reach for some geographical dispersion in your co-chairs. That way you've got that reach out into your entire district. Establish guidelines. As I talked about, there's that fine line when it comes to the military about crossing between active duty and the veterans community. You need to make sure that your advisory council is aware of that and that they're not doing things on bases or saying things or putting people in uniform out there on your behalf. It's pretty easy to communicate with this group. We recommend that folks hold monthly conference calls. We do this on a national level. We have conference calls once a month for the Veterans and Military Families Council that I'm a part of. It's the national leadership. Our state directors hold ones in the state. It's a great way, just once a month, to get people on the phone for 30 minutes, talk to them, talk about what's the latest in the campaign, give them a sense of ownership about the campaign, involvement about the campaign. It's not every month that you're going to have a veterans event or a military-themed event, but this is a way to keep them engaged, keep them involved, keep it growing, give them the latest, here's our latest fundraising numbers, here's our latest, here's what we're doing this week. It's just a great way to give them ownership of the campaign.
And it doesn't have to be you, especially when you get into like the higher level seats where you are raising money all the time. If you just stop in and say hello and let your field, the person who's your field director or your campaign manager, just have an ear and be part of that. That way, people feel like they're part of the team. It's great to see you as part of that, but you're more sort of coming in and saying, "Hey, thanks for doing this. Glad you guys are doing this. I got to go back and raise money."
And make sure you schedule it for the same time and same day every month. Give people consistency. Let them get it on their calendar, and they'll participate. You'll be surprised at the turnout. The last piece there: don't lose the media advantage here to kick this off. Be it on Veterans Day, be it on 4th of July, be it on something military related. You want to kick this off in a public fashion. You want to make sure the media is invited to the kickoff. Maybe you want to have some of the surrogates, some of those co-chairs, some of those people from your unit there speaking on your behalf. It's a great opportunity to get the word out there that you're on the military side. A key point of this is once you build this advisory council, they're going to help you shape what we call your veterans policy statement or your pledge. This is a simple 1 or 2 page document that's going to talk about your thoughts and the issues and the beliefs that you're running on as a candidate when it comes to the military community and when it comes to the veterans community. We have templates for this that we help send out to candidates around the country. We all know the major issues to the veterans community today, whether it's healthcare treatment across generations, whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder, TBI, whether it's the women's health issues that are a major concern for women's veterans today, whether it's unemployment for veterans today, which is a major topic that you should be talking about on your campaign. You've got almost 1 in 5, or I think was the last number I saw, almost 1 in 5 Iraq and Afghanistan veterans who are currently unemployed. What major ones am I forgetting? Brandon?
Did you say homelessness?
Homelessness. Veterans homelessness is another major topic that you should be talking about.
Guarantee you can find a veteran homeless shelter somewhere in your district. There's every town's got one, every county's got one. Find it, go say hello, let them know who you are. They'll appreciate you bringing attention to them, and B, it'll give you just a really great sense of when you go out to tell stories in the campaign. When I was there, this is what I saw.
The second area being that military families piece, as John mentioned, that survey that came out last year, where 96% of military spouses and military families felt that the broader American public did not identify with their issues and did not know what their issues were. This is a tremendously underserved demographic for you as candidates, and frankly, it's a brand new constituency. I don't remember until this last cycle anybody ever talking about military families from a political or policy sense. And the fact is they vote. They are not active duty military members. They're not subject to the UCMJ. They can show up at your rallies. They can wear the shirts and carry the signs. It's a tremendous resource to tap into, so make sure your policy statement is talking about military family issues. And the third one being you don't want to forget the active duty piece. You want to talk about the needs of our current military, whether that's rest between deployments, proper equipment and resourcing. Everybody who's served has their own horror stories from active duty about equipment shortage or personnel or deployment pace, or talk about those issues that face the active duty community and make sure they're part of your policy statement
And
as well.
if you're at the state level, if you're not running for national office, and you won't be affecting those policies. If you're at the state level, talk about ability to, when folks are coming home, what you can do as a community to support that. Because as you guys all know, there's huge challenges right now with all the reserve and guards coming home. But you obviously keep that the level you need to have it at. But you can definitely talk about that from every level, from county on up.
And this is something, when you build this policy statement, when you build this pledge, this is something that you want to broadcast. This is something you want to have a press event around. This is something you want to release publicly to the media. And it's something that you want to display prominently on your website. So when somebody goes to your campaign website and they see those lists of issues, or however you design your website, whether it's by issue, by constituency group, you want to click on that Veterans, Military Families tab, and you want that policy to pop right up. And people can see that you're talking to the issues that they care about. So don't bury this policy statement. You want to make sure it's publicized. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Sorry.
This is this slide.
Do you want to talk about the pledge?
Yeah, just from the pledge perspective, the advantages of doing it online is you have people sign it with their emails, so you capture all their email addresses, which for folks that do any fundraising online is key. Also, when you take these pledges and you have them hard copied, so that when you go to the county fairs all summer this summer, or you're walking down the parades, you have your volunteers with a clipboard saying, "Look, this is Brandon's pledge to veterans and military families. Will you sign it?" And you sign you get their names, you get their emails, you identify them in the voter files, you put you have them targeted as someone that has concerns about veterans and military families. You can maybe call them for money. It's a great way to capture information, which is key as you're figuring out who your supporters are going to be.
Some of the other things you can do if you're in a military community, and there's a list here, but don't be afraid to visit a military base as a candidate. Again, the rules are about people in uniform participating in political partisan activity, but it doesn't mean you can't go to a military base and meet with a base commander and introduce yourself, meet with a unit as an informational gathering. These shouldn't be public media events for you, but these should be just outreach events where you're trying to go to the community, talk to the community, understand the community, introduce yourself as a veteran, as a military community member, and put yourself out there as somebody who's going to fight on their behalf. Welcome home ceremonies are great events. We've all been through those. Promotions, host a military family coffee, use that spouse network. We all know how powerful those spouse networks are. It's a terrific social network to tap into. This is an important slide. Don't forget the VSOs. As you see there, again, most of these by name and by charter are nonpartisan, but the fact is their members aren't, and that's who you're after. You're after the members. You're not going to get an endorsement out of Disabled Veterans of America or IAVA. They don't do that. But you can get their members as supporters on your campaign. For Democrats in the room, don't forget organized labor. There are millions, literally millions of veterans in organized labor. We've had success just this past year with getting the AFL-CIO at their national level to create a Union Veterans Council. So that veterans organizing is trickling down through organized labor. On the Republican side, don't be afraid to go to the Chamber of Commerce. There's a lot of businessmen out there, businessmen and women who are former veterans. It's a great place to tap into as well. So don't forget those secondary and tertiary organizations where you find pockets of veterans to reach out to. Talking here about continuing, how do you identify these folks? Well, one of the things that was very powerful this last election cycle since 2008, as the technology has gotten better, as the voter files get more accurate, doing what we call vet-to-vet calling. We all know, we've all been through phone banks. If you haven't done phone banking, it's not the most glamorous time for your volunteers. It's difficult. A lot of people hang up on you. But one of the most successful ways we did was to have vet-to-vet calling, where we're crunching that data down to the fact where we know that we have our veteran volunteers calling veteran members of our community and introducing themselves with a veteran-specific script. As John mentioned when he started the talk earlier, hi, I'm Rob Diamond. I'm a veteran. I'm an Iraq War veteran. I'm a volunteer with Campaign X. Can I talk to you for a few minutes? And if you know that you're calling another veteran, I guarantee you're not going to get hung up on. They're going to give you time. They're going to give you the time to at least hear you out. That goes for the same on door knocking. You'll be able to identify where those veterans live, who those military community members are, by address during your canvassing. And it's the same thing. Use your veteran supporters and staff to identify those people and target them. I did canvassing for the Obama campaign in rural Pennsylvania, which was a totally purple district. Every yard sign was Obama, McCain, and it frankly didn't matter which door I knocked on. If I introduced myself as a veteran, I pretty much got nobody slammed a door in my face. They'd at least hear me out. They'd tell me I was totally wrong. They disagreed with me and they weren't going to vote for my candidate, but at least I got a hearing, and you'll get the same respect.
Hey, Rep, one of the things, if you do call days, like you literally have a veteran call day, like Tuesday is veteran call day, so veterans come into your campaign headquarters and make calls. And if you're reaching out to folks who you serve with, we literally had it set up to where my field director would cut veteran calls for the week, pass them off to somebody who was a squad leader, who passed the sheets off to 5 other vets who I serve with. They each made their calls, turned it back in at the end of the week. And, again, that works when folks are outside the district calling in. It's an incredibly powerful tool to say, look, I serve with, a guy like Tommy Sowers is running middle of nowhere, Missouri. People can call in and say, look, I serve with Tommy, and this is really, it's really important that he gets in Congress because he's going to do the best for us. So those are really powerful pieces to have. And when you reach out to the folks you serve with, they can be very quickly self-organized, better than any other group. My field director was blown away by the initiative that folks took to make phone calls.
And you're probably sitting there wondering, well, how the hell do I figure out who all these veterans are to make these calls? As I mentioned, the technology and the data is getting better and better and better. This is the van, which I don't know if has anybody talked about the van today? Okay, great. So we now have the ability to code veterans and military families in the van. This is the Democratic Party's system called Vote Builder, but I don't know how well you can see on your screens, but literally there's boxes there now that say military family, veterans, and you have the ability to code them as a volunteer and somebody that will work in your campaign. So that's how you track the data. Yes, sir?
On the van or the other one, does it come with it already identified, or is that something you have to do?
No, it's in the system now. This was probably one of the biggest accomplishments we made coming out of the 2000 cycle, was to get this coded into the van.
But they're not all tagged. Just because it's coded in there doesn't mean they're tagged. So some states like Ohio, veterans are every year they pull up the new van and veterans are tagged. A place like New York, they're getting there, but there's ways to go, and this is all in this memo. But if your state has property tax exemptions for veterans, you literally send an intern down as public records. They pull it out, they match that file against a voter file, and you've maybe not 100%, but you've ID'd veteran households across by just matching those files together. It's a bit of it would seem like a bit of a pain, but it's actually relatively quick and it's relatively accurate. And then our goal is later on cycles that this stays in, that this is something that's constantly tagged.
And this is something your volunteers need to keep working at too, that every time you're doing your vet-to-vet calls or your calls in general, that they know to be going back into the system and tagging the van so that your data is just getting better and better and more accurate. But this is a big help and a huge step on both sides. Brandon, you want to talk a little bit? I know you guys talked social media a little bit at lunch, but Brandon's going to talk a little bit about the specific outreach.
Yeah. I didn't break it, did I?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, like Eric said, I'm the director of new media at the Department of Veterans Affairs. I've been doing that since the beginning of August 2009, and it was a new position that the department created as a means to sort of actually do outreach to veterans, which is not something that VA has typically done before, which, for most people who aren't veterans, that's not really intuitive. But if you've ever been a veteran and you've come out of the military and gone into the VA system, you realize that sometimes the Department of Veterans Affairs can be a little opaque and not necessarily transparent or communicative with people. So I went from this job in politics and into VA trying to really turn that around. And one of the big things we've been trying to do is really cultivate outreach through social media and stuff among the veterans community. Unfortunately, I missed the panel earlier today where you guys discussed new media. Could I get a show of hands? How many people in here use Facebook actively? Okay, pretty much everybody. What about Twitter? Wow. See, Facebook's about 10 times the size of Twitter, and you can see why. Not a lot of people use it, but what it comes down to is these are platforms that are free. And when you're running for office, being able to communicate with people and get your message out for free is absolutely critical. So, but you got to figure out how to do it right, and you got to figure out how to target veterans when you do it. Well, you got to figure out how to target all your demographics, but in this case, we're talking about veterans. One of the things that people will do when they get on an official, like let's use Facebook for an example. You get on an official Facebook page, they stiffen up, and they keep their politician hat on, and they give you canned answers or whatever, but they don't talk to people the way they would talk on their own Facebook page. This is something that we're trying to change at VA. We have we've started Facebook pages and Twitter accounts at VA, and one of the things that I've tried to urge people to do within the department is talk to people the way that you would talk to them if you were speaking to them in person. If I was talking to you right now, you want to talk to them in that same tone online. And you have to actually engage. You can't post something on Facebook or Twitter. You can't post it and run, and you don't want to, because here's why. When you engage people in conversation, specifically on Facebook, if you post something, somebody else comments on or asks you a question, you go in and you answer their question and you start a conversation. You got to remember, every time somebody posts something or comments on your Facebook page, it shows up on their Facebook page as Bob Smith or Jane Smith just commented or just liked something on this page. So if you've got your candidacy page, which is John Doe for Congress, every time somebody comments on there, it's going to show up on their Facebook page as they just commented on John Doe's Facebook page, and it's free advertising for you. So then all their friends who go to their Facebook page see that your Facebook page exists, and it just casts this net. And when people see that their friends are commenting or engaged in conversation on a page, they may be more likely to check that page out. So if you're keeping the conversation going and you're actually, if you can make the time for this, I know you should be doing call time and fundraising, but if you can do this, you'll get some good conversations. The other thing, if you take Twitter for example, Twitter, which of course is not as popular as Facebook, a lot of local VSOs have their own Twitter accounts. Not so much on Facebook. They usually have the large organizational Facebook pages. But on Twitter, you'll get like the North Dakota American Legion Twitter account, or the West Tennessee chapter of the VFW has their own Twitter account. You can go find all these on Twitter, and you can find out you can check and see who's following them, and a lot of those followers are going to be your veterans in that area. So as a candidate, you want to go, let's say you're in Virginia. If you can find the Virginia American Legion chapter on Twitter, you go find all their followers, and most of those people are going to be veterans or family members who are in the local area in your district, and you can reach out to them that way. You can follow them, and typically they'll follow you back, and it just really enhances your ability to spread your message effectively and economically, most importantly. Let's see if I had anything else for this. One of the good things about Facebook is that when you click on somebody, you get a lot of their data. You can see which pages they're fans of, so it can help you identify. If you think somebody's a veteran, you're not totally sure. If they got high and tight in their photo, and they're fans of the 101st Airborne Division and the Department of Veterans Affairs, then there's a pretty good chance that it's somebody you might want to reach out to with your message. A couple other things. You see organizations like IAVA, which I know some people in here are probably members. you see how they reach out to people. Try to emulate that kind of stuff as much as possible for veterans. You know, that's a group that does a really good job. See how they do Twitter. See how they do Facebook. We're trying to do the same thing at VA now. So go to the VA Facebook pages and Twitter pages and see how we're trying to engage, because we're actually starting to get a little traction with it. And one other thing you might want to do in your area may not be as effective with military blogs or veteran blogs, but as a veteran and a candidate, in terms of social media, don't neglect to reach out to bloggers in your area and see if you can get them to interview you. If you can get somebody to interview you, and most of the time it'll be in writing, you can get some good free publicity that way. Or sometimes they'll do a live blogging thing where you agree to show up on their blog for an hour one afternoon and take questions from people. But that's just another tip to really get your message out for not a lot of money. I think that's all I got for this slide, and I'll turn it back over to Rob.
We hosted a blogger dinner at the beginning of the campaign where we got a lot of the local bloggers to come together at one restaurant and sit down and just have an totally off-the-record conversation. It's never totally off the record with bloggers, but an off-the-record conversation. And then when we needed those folks down the road, we had allies that we could reach out to with our message. So, you know, a lot of them have probably never met each other, and so you get them together and they actually appreciate it, and then you can sort of utilize that to get your message out. Sorry.
One of the most effective events that we held last cycle were the care package days. I know as members of the military, we've all been inundated with care packages on deployment. We all don't need 50 toothbrushes, but at least that was my experience. But these are a great way to engage the community. Again, you're looking for ways to engage your supporters and show your outreach and show your efforts. This has been done on a national level all the way. If you remember during the anybody who was out in Denver during the Democratic National Committee, First Lady Michelle Obama held a major care package event that generated national media and really kicked off her military families platform. It was a big success. These are a great way. John, were you the one that led the one at Netroots? Was that the?
A couple years ago, yeah.
A community of, again, the blog.
Brandon was there too.
Yeah, Brandon and John did a care package event out at Netroots Nation, which is a progressive blogging conference that happens every year. And then not exactly your prototypical military outreach community, but a big success. Talk about success. There are a lot of issues in the veterans and military community right now. Those of you who know, just yesterday, the House and Senate passed an omnibus veterans health care legislation, passed the House 419-0. That's bipartisan success. It's a major health care bill expanding care for rural veterans, for women's health care, a bunch of other issues. There are major issues in the veterans community that cross party lines, and you should be talking about those issues. The GI Bill was a controversial one, but it garnered a lot of Republican support. There was some major disagreements on the bill, the size of the scope of the bill, but I don't think anybody can disagree that it's landmark legislation, and it's something that if you support, you should talk about. I don't know if there's other ones that you can think of that you want to highlight.
Look first off in your state and your county too. You know, all counties have a veteran level, or they should have a veteran level coordinator. If they don't, you should make it part of your policy to get one. You know, you should definitely reach out to those folks because it's a really interesting group to, again, something you can target and put into your pledge as well.
So that kind of wraps up our presentation on the outreach. We'd love to spend a few minutes taking questions from the audience.
Yeah, for those who don't know, if you're not familiar with Flickr, it's a photo sharing platform. You can upload all the photos you want. You can bulk upload. You can give them captions and titles, and it's a great way to catalog what you're doing. You know, if you're shaking hands, greeting babies, whatever. I haven't seen a lot of campaigns really utilize it yet, but it's really just a documentary of your whole campaign, and it's a way to upload photos and get the good photos that you want out there, and anybody can download them and use them. If you got good photos, it's a good way to share with other bloggers. You put them up on Flickr, let the bloggers know they're there, and they can download them for free, and it's easy.
And the media, too.
Yeah, the media can get the same stuff.
The White House uses Flickr brilliantly right now. They have a daily White House Flickr stream where the official White House photographers, every picture you see that hits the front page of a newspaper or Time magazine or something is actually coming off that Flickr stream from the White House. So they get to control the message visually that they're putting out there. So it's a great tool.
And just quickly, the GW Vets are a great example of a group that has not on a political campaign, but organized vets in an incredible way and have totally changed the influence of everything from the GI Bill here at GW to the president of the school now has a veteran coordinator, right, who works closely with Brian Hawthorne on this. It's Student Veterans for America and the universities and in your districts probably have a similar group. Go try to find them because they're active and they'll be out there to help your campaign.
And you have tens of thousands of new veterans going to college under the new GI Bill, so it's a great. And the Yellow Ribbon Program, right?
And if your school in your district doesn't have a Yellow Ribbon Program, some of them don't.
It's a great campaign.
It's a great campaign piece.
My knowledge is you cannot. Unfortunately, the state parties do control what seems like control access to that, whether that's right or wrong. That's been my experience.
For the voter file, though,
For the voter file.
But you can get into, there's marketing data out there you can buy that, they target vets like anybody else. Like they target, if women's magazines go into certain women's homes. So there's ways to do that.
The other way to get the data, and this is slightly harder and slightly more time intensive, but the fact is you're not the first veteran to ever run for office. And there are pre-existing lists. You just need to go find who owns the list. I use, for an example, John mentioned, the Veterans for Kerry in 2004. We culled the country looking for those people that were working on the Kerry campaign in 2004 to put that data back together and find those state and local lists. So if you do a little digging and look back in history a little bit, maybe the last cycle, has anybody run prior to you in the last few cycles who's a veteran, there's probably a good chance that you can get a fairly organized Excel spreadsheet out of them that has phone numbers and addresses and things like that. We had some real success getting big numbers like that. Sure, yeah, and it comes back to those issues that we talked about that are affecting the broader community. We don't necessarily need to talk about Iranian nuclear policy in your local or state race, but you do need to be talking about veterans' unemployment and health care access to rural veterans if you're in a rural community, and women's care for female veterans, and the issues affecting military families. Those are local issues. Those are everyday issues. You're talking about health care and jobs and unemployment and homelessness. Those cross all boundaries. Where you can stay away from, should we have a ballistic missile shield in Poland? That's not going to matter. But when you talk about 15% veterans unemployment in your locality or your city, that's going to resonate.
We used this model to launch a campaign last August called Operation Free, where we had the goal in August to have 100 veterans on board talking about the national security implications of clean energy, climate security, energy security, pretty important issues, and issues that are going to resonate in your towns, because a lot of you, if you have a rural district, there's always discussion about windmills and whether windmills are going up, what's going on there. You may have the discussion of a nuclear plant or a coal plant in your district. That's something you can bring from a national security perspective. Go to operationfree.net, sign up. We literally have hundreds of vets across the country now on this. We've got the bus. If you were here this weekend, there's a bus parked on the mall that our vets have been traveling the country with for the last 6 months, and there's a rock concert with Sting that they're taking part in.
And this is a bipartisan issue. There's a bill coming out, the Kerry Graham-Lieberman bill, which will be introduced this week, which is going to be the leading energy climate change bill. And we're attacking this from the military veterans' point of view because we've all deployed to the Middle East, and many of us at the root of our deployments was some sort of a energy security mission, whether it was guarding oil terminals in the Persian Gulf for me, or overseeing gasoline tanker convoys from Kuwait to Iraq for other folks. There's a lot of experience within the military in the last 40-plus years about the time we've all spent in the Middle East. and then what our military has been doing because of our dependence on foreign oil. And that's a great topic for across the aisle that veterans can engage on, about bringing that energy back to America. That's not a Democratic or Republican argument. It's about American national security and American power here. So it's something.
And there's a group in Colorado that's translated that into jobs, Veterans Green Jobs, who are using the GI Bill to fund community colleges for folks that aren't running for the national level, community, state level. They fund community colleges through the GI Bill to train on clean energy jobs. And they've now become, it's an amazing group. They became the leading energy evaluators in all of Colorado in 1 year. They went from 0 to 15 million. What's that? Veterans Green Jobs. Pretty simple. It's veteransgreenjobs.com or .org or something.
It's a great way to provide a tangible solution to a veteran's unemployment issue, and not just talk about the issue, but talk about a solution.
And they create small businesses. It's a really interesting model.
All right. Let's thank our panel for their time.